Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Quantum Magic TV. It is 12 p.m. PST on Monday, and we have the most incredible man here because he has helped shape shift my life in crazy ways in such a short amount of time. George, you are a transformational coach, helping people break through barriers, mental, emotional blocks, shifting their paradigms. You're the founder of Shape Shift LLC. You were one of 6 Tony Robbins top national speakers on Peak Performance. You've studied yoga and meditation for 15 years. You're just phenomenal. How are you?
Wow, that is the warmest introduction I think I've ever received. Thank you so much, Shay.
So welcome.
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm so privileged and honored that you invited me to be a part of your podcast and to share in this conversation today. So I'm excited to see where we go.
Absolutely. And I guess I wanted to dive in a little bit and talk about, our experience and things that you've helped me with for sure. Now, I did want to ask you, how did this all come about for you? What quantum leap had to happen for you to become a coach, for you to be studying with Tony Robbins? Where did your journey start? How did this all come about?
I think what a lot of viewers are looking for is an inspiration of where does purpose come from. And my mentor, Rich Litvin, he always says, I'm going to teach you how to be an overnight success in 46 years.
I love it.
We oftentimes compare people's best moments, people's progress that they've made over the course of 20 years, their chapter 20 to our chapter 1. And we compare our worst moments, our worst emotions to what we see on social media. And I prefaced answering your question with that because the truth is, I've thought about this question a lot, and it really all started with a mistake that I made when I was 16 years old. You see, I grew up in an area in this Los Angeles area called Palos Verdes. It's a very affluent, very wealthy area. And my family and I lived very humbly. We had enough of what we wanted and as well as what we needed, but we didn't drive Mercedes-Benzes or Porsches, anything. In fact, my father passed down a Volvo station wagon that had 460,000 miles on it when he passed it on to me. So, but when I was 16 years old, I was at a party and I made a decision to get into a car with a drunk driver. And he was racing up these switchback mountains that were very windy, and he was driving very fast. And in that moment, I said, this is really stupid. What am I doing? And I was drinking a beer in the passenger seat, and I rolled the window down and I threw a beer out the window. And within 30 seconds, give or take, the car was coming around a turn and it hit a puddle and it started to fishtail and slide. It hit a curb, rolled over, and fell off of a 100-foot cliff.
Oh my God.
And we all got knocked unconscious. And I remember my head just going around in circles like this. And then I got knocked out. And I woke up, and as I'm sitting back in my chair and I'm starting to come to, I realized that there's this orange light that's really bright in front of me. And I quickly realized that the car that we're in is completely engorged in flames. And fight or flight is kicking in. I've got cortisol pumping through my body. And I try to start opening the door, and the door is stuck because we're in this crevice. And I'm trying to kick the door open, and the door won't open. And I remember this feeling of sitting back in the chair, looking at the fire and just thinking, this is it. It's over. And as soon as I said that within myself, my friend starts shaking. He says, George, your window is down. And because I rolled that window down, moments before the car spun out of control, we all managed to crawl out of the window unscathed and unharmed. And we climbed up this cliff, and I almost fell back. My friend had to catch me as I was literally falling back from this cliff. And we climbed all the way to the top. And by the time we got to the top, the fire was at eye level to where we were standing. And I remember looking into that fire, and the sirens were coming, and the fire truck was there, and the police were there. And I remember this moment of stillness. where I was looking in the fire and I looked up at the stars and I just heard this voice that said, "Not yet." And it was in that moment that I knew with certainty that my life was spared for a reason beyond myself, beyond this affluence and living a life of luxury and wealth. And maybe those things are in my future, but it wasn't going to be just about making the money and being rich and buying the things.
Right.
I have no idea what this means, but I know with certainty that for the first time in my life, there is something up there watching us. There are angels out there and spirits out there who are guiding us. And I felt it. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it. And I have no idea what this means. So fast forward 12 years. I had gone to college, gotten good grades, and followed the model that society gave me. Go to school, get good grades, work, study business, work in sales, make a lot of money, get a girlfriend, all the things, right?
Yeah, all the
I was
things.
living, yeah. I was living in Playa del Rey, right near Venice, California, and in Los Angeles, and I was working at a job making over $250,000 a year, and I was in a relationship, and to make a long story short, that relationship ended, and we worked together, we lived together, and when she decided to leave, I lost my roommate, I lost my business partner, and I lost the person that I felt an emotional attachment with. And it rocked me because it unveiled that I was completely out of alignment in my life. And so a breakup turned into an identity crisis, and an identity crisis turned into depression. And I couldn't find joy. I couldn't laugh. And normally I'm a pretty happy guy. So feeling that I don't know if I'm going to get out of this was the darkest place I'd ever been in my entire life. And I had a meditation practice. I had a yoga practice. And believe me, I was leaning on those things just to literally survive, just to literally get by. And the universe brought me an opportunity to go to a Tony Robbins event. And so I did. And by the way, the universe oftentimes gives you what you need, not necessarily always what you want or what you think you want. And it was a life transformational experience for me. And in 3 to 4 days, I learned more about, and I've always had a passion for this. I've always had a passion for psychology. I've always had a passion to understand, why do people do what they do? What drives their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, and their actions? Why is it I am in this place? And why does it I feel completely out of control? Well, in 4 days, Tony gave me the answers to that. And he helped me see that the reason why I was spared from that car accident was to help people find that level of clarity in their life. Because what takes us away from clarity is conditioning. And like me, we all live in a world where we are very heavily influenced by what our parents tell us, by what society tells us, by what school tells us, by what our government tells us, by what social media we absorb through the media and social media. They all mean well, for the most part.
Yeah.
But the model is outdated. And so when I went through my transformation, I knew that I was spared from that car accident to help other people wake up, to help other people find out what their purpose is and live within their fullest potential. Because I believe that we transform the world through transforming the individual. The answers are not in the external, the answers are in the internal world. It's an inside out approach. And when we can get an alignment, and your story is a testament to that, when we can alignment and get really clear on who we are, not who we think we are, not what other people think we are, but live into who we are, the essence of who we are, we can then come into very clear awareness into what it is we want in our life. And the highest form of, one of the highest frequencies, the highest vibrations of human experience is fulfillment, is joy, is love. And those things come when we find a way to use our values, our gifts, our passions to help other people. So when we get in that alignment, we are literally transforming the world, because we will innately find a way to give back, to serve. Because in return, we end up living in the highest vibrational frequency possible.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. I have my head's just like, yes, this is so good because it's so true. And do you believe that essentially every human being has to almost go through a darkness phase almost to kind of truly grow and evolve and shift?
I don't believe that they have to, but Michael Reverend Beckwith says that there are two major moments of insight, Kensho and Satori. Kensho would describe what you mentioned, where there's hardship, suffering, loss, grief, pain. And that sparks a dilemma. And that dilemma creates an opportunity for insight to come through within us. And as you can tell through a couple different times in my life, that was my experience. Is it mandatory? No, there isn't. Satori is the other form where there's just this sudden moment of insight, this sudden awakening to a higher understanding. And life can bring us both of these moments. There is not one way to do anything in this life. And that's the beauty, is that when we can truly embrace there are multiple paths, there's variety. There is no right or wrong. There is just different ways. Then it's just about leaning into what your life experience ends up being. Right. Now having said that, I will say that pain, hardship, loss, suffering, and grief are inevitable. They're part of the list of 5 things that we cannot change. And so eventually we're going to find disappointment in our life, and that's okay. Right. So there's a bit of a, like all things in life, there's always a paradox there to that.
Right. Absolutely. And I think too, it's so crazy when people don't realize that our brains really hold us in thinking smaller than what the universe really wants to give us. And I feel like I just went through that really over the past 3 years. I was thinking so small. And now that I've just allowed myself to really open up and receive and know and work on myself truly, all these insights and visions and things are starting to come intuitively to me that I would have never guessed or thought about or even crossed my mind a year ago. And what's your take on that?
My take on that is we're in a very critical part in human history where we're going through an evolution, a consciousness evolution.
The golden age.
And the golden age. We're moving from, and for those that practice Kundalini yoga, you're aware that we've moved just now from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we are now living in a consciousness state and a state of awareness where our focus can transcend our basic needs for safety and our basic needs for security. But there is evolution does not just happen overnight. So there are, as you said, to go back earlier, there are these thoughts that keep us where we are, that want to keep us safe, that keep us secure. The part of our brain that doesn't like change, that doesn't like uncertainty. Call it ego, coming from the default mode network. Call it from our rational part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex that analyzes things and creates a story around why we need to stay safe, why we must stay in our comfort zone. But we're evolving out of that. We're becoming more aware because of the time that we're living in, the environment that we're living in. Most of the world does not have to worry about basic survival and safety, but our mind still has these old strings that are attached to that way of thinking. And so we live in survival mode. As opposed to being worried about lions, tigers, and bears, we're worried about money, the mortgage payment, taxes. And that puts us in the same state of mind, which is fight or flight. Cortisol pumps through our body, which is a stress hormone. Our adrenal glands are firing. And what ends up happening is that it produces a surge of energy. I was just having this conversation today with a client where she says, I said, how's your energy when you were acting from this place of fight or flight? She said, well, it's really high, which is normal. The question is, what happened at the end of the day? She said, I was totally drained. She's fried. Why? Right. Because it fries the nervous system when we're laser focused to try to survive, and it's not sustainable. it creates this go, go, go mentality. But then when we go, 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 and we go, 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 and we go, 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 and it comes from that place of desperation, that place of survival, we fry our nervous system, we fry our bodies, we fry our emotions. And we end up living in this state of exhaustion and in this very low frequency. And so when we can create, what is mindfulness? What is practicing consciousness? It's becoming aware of when those thoughts that are coming from that place of fight or flight, those thoughts that are coming from desperation or rationalization, meaning I need or I should, is acknowledging when we're in that place and shifting into inspiration, which is, what do I want? When you act from a place of I want, and you know what you want, and what you want is in alignment with who you are, now we start to activate a higher energy source that is consistent, that is sustainable, and that is infinite.
Yes.
You've been noticing that shift in your life.
Hugely noticing it, and really stepping into when you get into that place of fight or flight, or like making decisions from that place and compromising or sacrificing your values is so keeps you held back and keeps you chained, and you'll almost go through that cycle yet again if you're not able to really check in with yourself. And even though there's fear there, like for me, for example, like I've been really trying, I say trying a lot, I've been shifting trying a lot. I'm watching my lingo.
Nice reframe.
My lingo.
Nice reframe. Nice reframe.
Really watching my languaging and how I'm projecting out to the universe, because that too is so important. I see a lot of friends, you know, go through their own cycles in their mind, and they tell me one thing, but then they'll tell me another thing that completely contradicts the other thing, but they don't hear themselves in that moment. And as a friend, I can only help someone become aware enough of their own thoughts and their own lingo, you know? And what's your take on languaging and how people speak things into existence?
Yeah, that's a really powerful conversation. And what good timing, because I've just been exposed to some new content through a book called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And he actually creates a map of human consciousness. And okay, so I keep coming back to consciousness because everything in life is energy. From this laptop that we're speaking through right now to our physical bodies, everything is moving energy. At a subatomic level, there are these atoms and protons and neurons and electrons that are vibrating. And everything is vibrating, and everything has a vibrational frequency. You know, some people say, oh, manifestation, and we talk about these things as very new agey and woo-y. But is it new age or is it science? And what we're now uncovering through the understanding of quantum physics and science is this idea of energy and vibrational frequency. Frequency is just something measured at a hertz level. What is the wave of frequency that something's operating on? We've got things that operate on a very low frequency and things that operate on a very high frequency. Things like your thoughts, things like your emotions operate at different frequencies. And so there's this idea of our beliefs equal reality. How is that so? How do we unpack, okay, if I think about something, how does that manifest into the reality that I'm in? Well, the reason why is because when you think a thought, what happens is that there is a neural connection between neurons inside of your brain where there's an electrical charge. And that charge creates a vibration, a frequency that your body at a DNA genetic level is actually absorbing and intaking, and therefore expressing itself through action. Literally, you think a thought, I'm going to move my right arm up, and I move my right arm up. That is coming because of an electrical frequency that's happening inside of your brain. So when you think limiting thoughts or empowering thoughts, it's going to dictate the way that you feel. The way that you feel is going to dictate the decisions that you make in your life, and therefore the actions that you take in your life. If you don't believe everything, this is a really profound but very simple statement. Everything in existence came from nothing.
Yep.
So if everything comes from nothing, then it starts with an idea. It starts with a thought. And those that are the most successful people in the world all just had simply a thought in their head, that created an idea, and that idea was reverse engineered into specific actions that they needed to take, and they believed that it could happen.
Yeah.
And the only difference between someone like an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos or a Tony Robbins or someone who's achieved these high levels of success is they simply believe that it can happen. And then they follow through with the action steps that it needs to happen. And so what's the relevance? So the practice then for us is just step one, observing our thoughts, becoming aware of what thoughts we have. And when asking ourselves, do I tend to have more limiting thoughts or more empowering thoughts? The best thing about life is that we have free will. We may not be able to control all the thoughts that come to mind, but we can start to consciously shift, just like you did earlier, our language patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when we start shifting our language patterns, that's when we can start shifting the results that we're getting in our life, because our belief systems equals how we tap into our potential, and our potential taps into what actions that we take or don't take, and the actions that we take will dictate the results that we get in our life.
Oh, that is so good. And it's so true. And I feel like for me personally, people have been asking, well, you are glowing. What's different? What are you doing? And for me, it was interesting when people come to me with that. And I'm like, okay, it's everything is energy. On my run today, I was just thinking this. How do I explain this to people in a very easily explainable way? And really, I love to speak of it like that, is that it's science and everything is energy and always vibrating at a certain level. And when you really think about it like that, you think of it, okay, like your thoughts are at a frequency, and there's certain material things out there that are at a certain frequency. And if you're emanating thoughts that are lower vibe, you can't attract that higher vibe frequency. So people wonder why, well, why can't I have that good thing in my life? Or why can't I have this result or that result? But then they're still in their own cycle of old patterns and thoughts, but don't want to go in and do the actual real work, because really it's simple work. It's hard work, but it is simple. It's simple in the fact of you need to sit with yourself. You need to check in your mind. You need to meditate. You need to keep movement in your body flowing. You need to accept your emotions and know that you're not your emotions. It's in that moment you're experiencing feelings, but they don't shape you, and they don't you are not your emotions in essence, you know. And I think people are very caught up, almost, if you will, in old paradigms of shifting or of thinking. So it's harder for people to see the change and see the shift for their own self. But when they find people like you and find people that are able to put it into perspective, like it really is science and energy and easy if you listen to it that way and make the necessary changes and have boundaries and have values and have discipline. Discipline's huge. And I never really I knew discipline was important because I was an athlete growing up, and I was a dancer, and I had all these goals and things that I wanted to do. But then I came to LA and I got very caught up in the scene, and I got very, I went the way that I thought, my brain thought I had to. Well, if I'm going to be in entertainment, I have to bartend and be in the bar industry, because then it'll open up, my time and scheduling. And that in itself was a pattern that ended up kind of derailing me and me not even realizing. And then in the midst of all that, I was making all these decisions with no discipline behind anything, and allowing all these outside influences to completely hinder my path, because I allowed it, because I didn't have the discipline and I didn't care. And I thought, well, it's fine. And there's a difference between being like, oh, it's okay and flowy and just let me just go with the flow. I was like that for a bit. Like, I'm spiritual and I can go with the flow. It'll come. But no, like, you really do have to do the work and do the inner work and figure out who you are as a person to actually get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. It's discipline, but discipline comes after self-awareness.
Yes.
And that's the game we're playing here, is self-awareness. And what came through me at the very end of what you were saying is this notion of go with the flow, because my friends and I, when we're in social interactions or when we're at Burning Man, we oftentimes just go with the flow and we allow
Yeah.
spontaneity and the uncertainty to embrace the magic that comes. And there's a lot of fun in that.
Totally.
And the interest and life is a paradox, right? So
Yes.
let's just
Balance
decide for a
everything.
moment. There is a duality to life, and also that duality is an illusion, and there's oneness, which may be confusing, but bear with me here, listeners. The interesting thing of going with the flow is if you're in a river and you are going with the flow of the river, and then there's a fork in the road, or there's a fork in the river, the side of the river that's going to pull the boat that you're in is going to be the side that has the strongest flow to it. And the side that has the strongest flow is the one usually where in 500 feet there's a waterfall and your ass is going to fly off the waterfall because you went with the flow. So point is time and place, right? There's an opportunity where going with the flow makes sense, and there's an opportunity like when we're trying to manifest and really level up in our life, where our default way of doing things, our default flow, as we may call it, there's a difference between going with the flow and being in flow state. Flow state starts with being aware of who you are and what you want at every single level: your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your actions, your belief systems, your values, your principles, getting that into an alignment and aligning that and the pursuits of what you want in your life. And those not being because you think you should, but it's because it's what I want.
Yes.
The changes. And then you can apply discipline against yourself when you have this mindfulness of awareing. By the way, now this transitions into the other part of, okay, you have your ego and you have your high self. And these seem like they are paradoxical forces that are working against each other at all time, when in reality, the work of mindfulness, the work of yoga, of meditation, of personal development, of coaching is all about how we can get these two, what seem like to be opposing forces, to work in synthesis with one another.
Yes.
Because it's like yin and yang, it's masculine and feminine, it's light and dark, day and night. You cannot have one without the other. As soon as you start trying to take away or act like one is not there, by the way, there are healthy versions and unhealthy versions of both sides. There's a dark side to being your hero. You know, there's a dark side to Batman being Batman. He's extremely lonely and actually very unhappy, right? Some would say. And so there's light and dark literally on both sides. So when we can come into full acceptance of who we are, where we're at in our life, it allows a different energy from within to start flowing. As opposed to shame, it's acceptance. Shame is just a form of resistance. Yes. So when we move into acceptance for our flaws, for that which makes us human, we start to be able to shift into this grace in life. And you said to mention earlier, people comment, you're glowing, you're radiant. Well, why is that happening? It's because we're not living in an emotional internal state of shame, guilt, resistance, anger, greed, right? We're not living in those low frequencies. We're living in a higher frequency of gratitude, of joy, of acceptance, of kindness, of love. And when we start entering in those places, our vibrational frequency is higher, literally can be measured through a logarithmic scale, the same logarithmic scales that measure Richter scales, which are tectonic plates during earthquakes. We have things that measure those on a frequency level. There are studies that by countless universities that measure the frequency of these elevated emotional states that we can activate through yoga, through meditation, through exercise, through transferring these emotions inside of us. And then all of a sudden, people can feel it. Yeah. I was walking in the grocery store the other day and I had a mask and sunglasses on. And this woman could not see my face, but she looks at me, she goes, "You look amazing right now." Aww. And I can tell the way that she says that. It's not about the way I look, it's what she's feeling. Yeah. And that leads me to a really interesting point, is that we all have a sixth sense. Yes. And that sense is intuition, feeling. Some of you are like, what are you talking about? Well, for those of you who have a spouse, okay, listen to me now. I want you to remember a time when your spouse, before the pandemic, came home from work and you could just feel that son of a bitch had a bad day.
Yeah.
You can just feel it. He didn't say anything to you yet. There's something inside. That is your intuition. That is a feeling, an intuition that you are picking up on about his energy frequency, being in a place of pissed off, frustrated, angry, upset, whatever that is, right? Animals live very much so in a much more connected place because they have less of their ego attached to them. And so they're able to sense these, they have a higher sensory to the intuition. That's why you see some people and they're cat and dog people or cat whisperers, right? Because they're living in alignment and the animals can feel this energy. Well, we can feel the energy too when we can start to intuit into it. And that's actually something that we can strengthen as a muscle. But we start with that by listening inward into ourselves about what does my intuition. So we make decisions so much from up here, but when I work with a lot with my clients, I have them do breathing exercises and put their hand over their heart, get them really present to feel what feels in this moment, what's showing up for you, not up here, in here. And you can start to pick up when people are starting to talk from here versus in here. And that's when you can just encourage yourself. When you feel yourself getting racy, when you feel yourself going down the train of thought, the downward spiral, the negative loops, just pause. Just take 3 deep breaths in. Put your hand over your heart and just ask yourself, what's showing up for me right now? How am I feeling in this moment? And when you can start to practice that over and over and over again, just like a muscle, just like going to the gym, repetition is the mother of all skill. So when we practice hearing the voice inside of ourselves, we can start to get more in alignment with who we are and what we want, because the heart knows everything. The soul, the essence of who you are, the answers of what you're looking for in your life, of the clarity that you think you don't have, are all inside of you, just waiting to be woken up, waiting to be found.
That is so good. It's so deep and so true. And I feel like so many people have turned away and pushed away their feelings because we were taught just to survive and fight or flight and this versus that. And right now is such an amazing time to really tune in and tune deeper to oneself. And even on my runs, I'm really finding I go on a daily run about 30, 40 minutes every day now. And it's evolved over this past month and a half. And before, I was doing it more for fitness and whatnot. But now it's like a manifestation period for me because I literally feel euphoric feelings and like I'm free and flying as I'm running. And it's actually, I get these insights and these intuitive ideas. Songs will come to me and I'll just start writing songs while I'm running. And I just feel this deeper connectedness to nature, to where I almost feel like the trees are the roots within our own world, as if the roots down below the trees are there, but they are their own as it comes. It's interesting and amazing. And I feel like I can look at flowers and see leaves and feel like this deeper connection to it in a way, like they're talking to you, but I feel like have to almost be open and welcome that in and be able to get to a certain frequency to where you want to hear it. You want to allow it in. You want the universe to speak to you, because I get signs non-stop right now, and I'm me. I'm still Shayla. I'm still this physical body, but yet a year ago I was so in a mental warfare in my mind, in my life, in my relationships, where I was at, versus now that I've really gone deep and dug into what I needed to do and shift for myself. And I see numbers constantly. I'm getting message. I'll be thinking of something, and then I'll see a certain animal or something random will pop up. And I just know the universe is like being almost comical in trying to be funny and be like, okay, affirming that message, or maybe you should relook at that message. And I think it's all how you look and shift and feel into life.
Yeah. My mentor, Michael Neal, he always says this. He says that luck is 98% unpredictable, yet 100% reliable. And I speak your language and I understand what you are describing, which is oneness, which is what Abraham Maslow described as a peak experience. That with which, when we simulate flow state, we enter into a place of deep focus, deep concentration. And when we achieve something really profound, whether it be in our relationships, in our career pursuits, in our mission, in an experience within ourselves, we can get to this area of peak experience. I get it when I do surfing, and when I'm snowboarding, when I'm climbing a mountain. There's this oneness that you feel that happens, where you feel connected with the universe. And so while I understand that, and that comes from a result of doing a lot of work within yourself, I mean, you can simulate it through things like psychedelics and through high action sports and these kinds of things. But the question is that I've always had is, how do we create this in a sustainable way in our everyday life? How do we get it so that way we can go on a run and tap into that really quickly, or just be sitting outside and be feeling the connection that we have out there with the universe and the oneness? And going back to what we were talking about earlier, how do we tap into the synchronicities that are happening? I do believe that we are being guided at all times. I do believe that there is a force, there is a source energy, God, if you want to call it that, that is guiding us along this journey every step of the way. And in the book, The Alchemist, there's a really great line he says, where the universe has a language of communicating to you, and they do it through the way of omens. And everybody has their different things. Some people believe in numerology and 1111 and 333. Some people connect with their spirit animals. Some people can just simply find little moments where you can tell something is happening. You can call it a coincidence. I call it a meaningful coincidence.
Me too.
I don't believe there are accidents. I believe there are happy accidents, meaningful coincidences, synchronicities. And when you can start tracking these things, and I started doing this year, I said, you know what, every time I feel like there's a little moment where it seems like something out of my control is aligning up for me, I'm going to write it down in a little journal.
Ooh, I like that.
When I did that, I started to realize how often they were coming up and how often I could see them happening. And it's really quite powerful when you can just quite simply start counting your blessings. And many people say, oh, that's new agey, that's woo-woo-y. Okay, that's your belief. That's all right. But when life really pushes you to the edge, and when you really look, success leaves clues. And when you talk to the successful people in the world, they will always share with you that at some moment, they just got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And you make your luck by doing the inner work, I believe.
Absolutely.
I believe you make luck by getting in alignment with yourself. The work here is inside. And when you show up in the world authentically in alignment with who you are, something starts to shift, where you start becoming the center of your universe, and gravity and nature all of a sudden start bending in your direction. It's as if everything that you want begins to flow to you. Michael Singer in Untethered Soul talks about this notion of effortless effort. We still have to show up and do the work. We still have to do the inner work and do the action. But when we do, the universe meets us halfway. And all of a sudden, everything that you want starts flowing to you effortlessly. It's when you make the decision to show up radically through fear, when you make a decision to show up through courage, when you make a decision to act on faith versus fear. That is when the universe kicks in. When you are in your highest vibrational frequency and you are literally magnetically, through your electronic magnetic field of what emission you're putting out, you are then attracting that which you are.
Right.
And that's what Michael, again, another quote from Reverend Michael Beckwith. He says that the universe doesn't give you what you want. The universe gives you who you are. You have to make the decision. You have to do the inner work. You have to figure out what you believe in, what you value, what you love, what you hate, what you're passionate about. You have to figure out what your role in this planetary shift is and what is your highest contribution. And when you do, there's a little reward, but it's not at the end. It's just the beginning. And the rewards start coming time in and time again. Doesn't mean that there's not struggle. Doesn't mean that there's not challenge. In fact, that's where the beauty lies, is in this challenge and in the struggle. And it's just about having resources, having people in your corner, having mentors, having coaches, having whomever to help you believe in yourself, help you find what you can inside of yourself to find empowering meaning so you can feel fear and take action anyway. Because on the other side of fear is everything that you want in life.
Absolutely. Oh, mic drop. That was so good. It's so true because my biggest fear, you guys, was to be alone. And I've now been alone, and not for a long time, but in this short period of time. And my whole world has shifted in amazing ways. And I was standing in my own way for so long. And I really hope that this call and this interview intrigues and inspires people to look deeper into who you are and what you truly want, aside from your upbringing, aside from your spouse, aside from what society tells you have to be, and just dig deeper, ask yourself deeper questions, ask yourself, what do you want in life, and stop playing small and stop thinking small, because truly we can have, do, or be anything we want. And it really is in believing that the seeing happens. I had believe tattooed was my first tattoo ever, my mom's writing, when I was 18, because I always knew as a kid, if I believe it, I'll see it. Not if I see it, believe it. It's so opposite. So wow, this has been mind blown.
How about you?
I'm good. It's so crazy because a whole shift happened with my mom, and she realized that she doesn't even want to be with the man that she was with and putting all that time into. And I realized that there was this, she actually now is coming to me for like coaching basically. And it literally has 180 flipped and shifted. And she's taking all my advice. She's listening. She is crying and realizing all the shifts that she needs to make. She left the relationship. She's now focusing on herself. She got her own coach. This whole like shift happened. It's almost like the daughter mother roles like switched in a weird way, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm mothering her, but like it's just it's interesting. And I told her how I felt, and that I felt like she was very not really there, and it's okay. And I just let her know how I felt, and that it's okay, and not in a mean way or like to hurt her in any way, but I was just expressing where I was at. And just a lot of realizations and a lot of letting go, like really letting go and being okay with it and like sitting into it. And I had to take Wednesday after so I went to the beach. It ended up getting too late to like go in the water. So it was like sunset already when I got there. And I sat there till like maybe 10 or 9:30 at night, got home, and I just went buck wild on my apartment and decluttered and got rid of so much stuff. I've been selling so much stuff, and just like I want it out, and in a good way though. And now I'm literally shifting my entire apartment to like be my studio, and I have every corner is a film area that I can film and do all my videos, because I just want to blow this out of the water with everything I'm doing. And now I'm going to Vegas tomorrow to interview this comedian dude, and I booked 2 shoots, and it's just like I took 3 days almost to just slow down a bit and stop being so go, go, go. And I went back to the beach again on Saturday and sat with myself all day, and it was amazing. And ever since then, I've pumped out 3 shoots on Sunday, and it was just way more focused and intentional and got more done. And I finally realized the whole like less is more thing. Like that sunk in hugely for me. And I'm like, I love to do more, and I love to, but I'm realizing also, even with my work and everything I'm doing, is like I can be intuitive and don't have to plan so much, because when I trust myself that I have unlimited amount of creativity coming out of me nonstop, and just to stop questioning it and having to plan the filming and plan this or that or the dance and how it's all going to go down, and just trust that I prep enough. I've been prepping my whole life, that it works and it just flows. And I just keep telling myself to, like, and I feel it too, like everything is easy and flowing and it's perfect in divine timing and it's just happening for me. And I just really truly feel it, and I'm embodying it more so than trying for it.
Mm, wow. What a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
And just what feels natural for me in this moment is to really acknowledge what you've learned in such a short amount of time in between today, this moment, and when you and I first connected. What was that? Whatever that was, maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, maybe. I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly when, but before it was this go, 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 everything's great, everything's fine, when some things it's not. And now you've accessed this power of slowing down to speed up.
Yes. And
And
listening, really listening to yourself
mm,
more.
and listening to yourself and knowing what your truth is, being willing to share that truth with yourself. Maybe it's ugly, maybe it's sticky, maybe it's yucky. And then being able to come forth in your relationships, especially with your mother, and
Mm-hmm.
share that with your mother. And it's what I heard is not so much, I mean, maybe you're giving her advice and that kind of thing, but what I really heard is that there's a moment of really radical vulnerability between the two of you.
Yeah.
And it's like she's hired her own coach, and that's where she's getting deep work done. But
Mm-hmm.
what's been created is this space between you where vulnerability flows
Yeah.
and comes out, and truth comes out, and rawness comes out. And, you know, one, you've taken being creative and evolved being a creative into being a creator.
Yes. I love that.
Right? Most
So
people live in the land of creativity where they have all these ideas and they're creatives, but they're not actually creating. They're not a creator. And
mm-hmm.
so there's that shift that's happening where you've spent time taking inventory of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your emotions, of your truth, of what serves you, what doesn't serve you, wicking away friends that aren't serving you, wicking away energy that doesn't serve you, limiting beliefs that aren't serving you, and literally clearing out your apartment, clearing out your closet, right?
Yeah.
And getting in alignment so the creativity can be taken to the next step of creator. And now all of a sudden the universe is kicking in and bringing you opportunity and the right people that are in alignment for these deals, for these shoots, for these opportunities for you to create with. And you're doing it from a much more energy rich place and a much more grounded place. And
Yeah.
therefore now you're in flow because of that.
Yes. And I like feel that so much. So in a sense to where like I used, and I think, and this is where ego comes into play as well with spirituality. People can think they're spiritual and be coming from this place, but the minute you add the judgment in, that is not spiritual, and that's ego. And I think too, like I was in a place of judgment too, like, oh, they just don't get it, they're not on the level, and that is just ego in itself. And now I really am trying, I'm embodying like knowing where someone's at and it being okay, and knowing that I'm so solid in where I'm at that it won't derail me no matter what, because I'm so solid with where I'm at, but accepting them and opening it up to love them and allow it to be the way it is and flow with that. And I think you had said that the last time we talked, something similar, and I've that really set in for me. And I'm just I'm at this level of like peace, like so much peace in flowing and knowingness that it's unexplainable. And like I get chills on the daily, and I just feel I can hardly sleep, like in a good way though. Like I'm excited. I don't want to go to bed because I'm so excited about what's going on and I'm creating. And then I want to wake up quicker because I'm excited to like keep doing it. And I'm really looking at a lot of like relationships that have been going on in my life, and how it's so interesting how one relationship will feel a certain way and another one a certain way, but the roles are switched and it's actually teaching you the same similar thing, but you're this person versus that. And then in the other relationship, you're this person versus that. And then it allows you to see in such a different way, you know?
Mm-hmm. And when you are at peace with yourself and where you are in this journey and where you're at in your spiritual development, and judgment leads to expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Expectation leads to suffering.
Yeah.
It leads to disappointment.
Yeah.
We have expectations of the way that our parents should show up in our conversations.
Yeah.
We have expectations from business partners. We have expectations about friends and what needs they meet or don't meet. Romantic partners especially.
Yeah.
And when we shift that judgment inside, when we find peace through independence, through self-parenting, we can show up grounded in who we are and what we want. And as opposed to having unspoken expectations of someone else, we
Yes.
can create agreements with those people.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows us to not expect anything from them, but have a conversation in partnership, whether you're working toward a mutual goal in business, whether you're working on building connection with parents, spouses, friends, that you can consciously set up agreements with how one another is going to show up through trust, through safety, through negotiation. And that creates a different outcome in relationship and partnership than expectation does.
Totally.
And that's kind of what happens when you show up and you say, this is my truth. And they show up and they say, this is my truth. And then it's like, where do we sort out? Where do we work in the middle? Where do we support one another? Not codependently, but saying, I'm here working on my side, you're working on your side, here's how we could meet in the middle, right? And then we create these arrangements and these agreements. And it's so powerful what happens when we shift expectation to agreement, and what changes in life when that happens.
Yeah. And almost too, like, for me, I, with my mom, for example, you know, I felt like I was always, it hurt to see her suffer, and it hurt to see her going through these, you know, constant cycles in her mind, and her saying certain things, and I have to do this to get that. And I'm busy and man running around. And I'm like, you're not getting any younger. Like, you need to look out for your health. And I was trying to like dig in a little bit and coach. And that's the last thing people want to hear when they're in that emotional state. And I realized as well in this short amount of time, like how important it is to just be there for somebody and sit with them. Like, I think you said that the last time too, like, and just like not having to change it or shift it for them or whatever. And I really worked on that when I talked to my mom the last time. And I just, where she asked me things, I would be like, well, I invite you to think like this, and what if this, and da 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 da, instead of so much, well, you did this and that's your fault, and da da da. Like, it was just a very different type of interaction.
So powerful. So happy to hear that you've made that, you've been able to apply that subtle distinction, that subtle shift. And wow, what a difference in experience it opens up for you and your mother.
Huge. Like, and yeah, it just in all areas, in all ways. I can't even, like, you're amazing.
Thank you.
I'm just like so grateful for you. And I feel like I've known you maybe a month and a half total, maybe, right? 2 months, maybe?
Something like that. Something
Around there. But regardless, like, in a matter of that time from talking to you, I completely quit smoking weed. Like, I'll smoke as a fun kind of thing. And I'm open to talk about this because I think that everyone needs to be real and raw and transparent. And I'm not trying to hide anything in life and what I do. And I hope people can learn from this. And so just being open, but I was smoking 3 times a day, and in my own total mind of just craziness and and so stuck and not realizing it. And you pulled some crazy shit in diving deep into my mind and patterns and habits, and night and day of a difference in my life, in my energy, in my day to day, in my thoughts, in how I'm showing up. And I am so grateful for you.
I receive that, and I reflect that admiration back to you, because something that is so prevalent for you that enables you to take the insight that you gain from our conversations and turn it into action, which is turning into life transformational events and experiences. It's willingness. You have a willingness to challenge yourself. You have a willingness to challenge the world that you have been living in. You have a willingness to challenge the bullshit rules that keep you where you are and prevent you from going where you want to be. And no coach, no mentor can coach without willingness. And you have that willingness. And it's been so fun to stay a part of your journey and watch every time we connect and hear, without us even really creating a formal agreement or an action plan, you're taking it on yourself to integrate that, and you're coming back with these profound results. And that's a testament to you and the follow through, because the magic isn't in the conversations that we have. The magic is what happens, what you do with it.
Yeah.
And that's really been fun to see. And I know that as we move forward, as you move forward in your journey, the opportunity for us to work more even closely together is going to come, because you're applying yourself, you're in flow, you're creating, and that's going to yield results for you in exponential ways. So I just want to congratulate you on all that progress that you've made in such a short amount of time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you, George, so much. I think this is going to benefit people like unbelievably. And where can people find you? Where can they work with you? How can they find out more?
So like you mentioned earlier, the coaching program I've created is called Shape Shift Coach. And that's actually my website. So anyone that wants to connect with me can connect with me via my website at shapeshiftcoach.com. Or you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. I don't use it as much, but my Instagram, you can just find my name. I'm sure you'll post information about how to spell my name right. It's kind of a interesting last name where most people, it's 4 letters, but most people get it wrong. But it's George, Yueh. And just, there's only one of me on social media and Instagram. So if you just punch in that name, that my account will pop up. Feel free to send me a DM. If you're looking for support, happy to explore. Anybody that is listening in on this, I'd be happy to honor a gifted session as well if you reach out to me directly. And I know that that's always the hardest part. So if you are out there and you are feeling like you have a higher purpose, if you feel like you are someone who has a track record of success and you want to take it to the next level and you like support, feel free to reach out to me and we can explore what that would look like.
Oh, absolutely. You guys reach out, take the first step. George has changed my life in so many ways. I'm so grateful for you. And I just can't wait to just talk again and bring you on again and just dive deeper, because this has been profound. So thank you so, so much, George. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Anytime. Okay, you guys, thank you so much again for joining Quantum Magic TV. Every Monday, join us back here at 12 p.m. PST, and we will dive deep into quantum magic for you guys. Bye.